I had just retired when my daughter-in-law walked in and said, "I've decided I'm going to sell your car. You don't need it for anything anymore." I just smiled. The next morning, my car was gone because I had given it to someone who truly deserved it. And just like that, she was left speechless. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had just come back from school with my last box of belongings. Photographs of generations of students' faded diplomas, a mug that said Teacher of the Year 1998, 40 years teaching elementary school at Lincoln Elementary, 40 years of getting up at 5 in the morning, 40 years of wiping runny noses, bandaging scraped knees, and teaching children who arrived without even knowing their own names how to read. And now at 67, my retirement had finally come. I was organizing my pension documents on the dining room table when I heard the door open without anyone knocking. Not a knock, not a good afternoon, nothing. Just the creak of the hinges and the sharp clacking of her heels against the tile floor. Jessica entered my house like someone entering conquered territory. She was wearing that navy blue dress she always wears when she wants to look important. Her hair pulled back in a bun so tight it seemed to pull at her skin, and that cold gaze I had learned to recognize over the past 3 years. That calculating, measuring gaze that mentally tallies up what it can take. She didn't greet me. She just stood in front of me, arms crossed, one knee popped as if I were an employee needing instructions. "Emily," she said, using my first name without the respect any daughter-in-law should use. "I've made an important decision. I'm going to sell your car. You don't need it for anything anymore. A retired woman your age has no business driving around the city. It's dangerous. Besides Michael, and I need that money for a down payment on a bigger apartment, just like that, without asking. Without consulting, like someone deciding what to do with a piece of old furniture that's in the way. My silver sedan, that 2010 model I bought with so much effort after saving for 2 years, tutoring on Saturdays, and selling pies on the corner on Sundays. That car took me to school every morning, transported my son when he was a boy, carried groceries for families in need, witnessed my tears when I was widowed, and my laughter when Michael graduated. I felt a pit in my stomach, a hole that opened up like a crack in an earthquake. But something strange happened. Instead of crying, instead of yelling, instead of begging, I smiled. A small, calm smile that must have unsettled her because I saw her eyebrows furrow slightly. "Did you hear me?" she asked in that tone she uses when she thinks someone isn't understanding her orders. "I heard you perfectly, Jessica," I replied with a calmness that surprised even myself. "Good. I'll be here for the keys tomorrow at 10 a.m. I already have a buyer. He'll give you $4,500. It's a good price for a car that old, $4,500 that I was sure would never even reach my hands." She turned around and left, just as she had entered without saying goodbye, leaving behind only the scent of her expensive perfume and the weight of her words like stones on my chest. I closed the door. I stood there in the middle of my living room, surrounded by my retirement boxes, feeling the walls of my own house closing in on me. But that smile didn't fade, because Jessica had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She had just awakened something in me that had been dormant for too long. My dignity. And what she didn't know, what no one in my family knew, was that I had an ace up my sleeve, a secret I had kept for 25 years, a card I was about to play. But they didn't know that yet. The next morning, my car would be gone from the driveway, but not for the reasons Jessica imagined. If you want to know how this retired teacher gave the harshest lesson to the person who tried to strip her of everything, stay until the end. And if this story resonates with you, subscribe to the channel to keep sharing real-life stories that will make you feel you're not alone in your battles. Because what came next changed everything. And I swear Jessica never saw what was about to happen. I should have seen the signs when Jessica entered our family like a hurricane disguised as a breeze. But a mother always wants to believe the best of the person who makes her son smile, even if that smile is fake. It was February of 2022. Michael was 42, and I had lost hope of seeing him married. Not because he wasn't a good man, but because he was too good, too noble, too naive. The kind of person who believes everything he's told, who never suspects others' intentions, who thinks the world is as honest as he is. I raised him alone since he was 7 when his father died in a construction accident. We didn't receive a single dollar of compensation, nothing. It was just him and me. An elementary school teacher with a salary of $1,500 a month, and a boy who had just lost his dad. Those were hard years, very hard. I remember nights packing lunches at 5 in the morning, ironing his school uniform while he slept, inventing games so he wouldn't notice we had no money for toys. I remember selling cupcakes at school, sewing for the neighbors' tutoring until 11 at night to pay for his college. Michael studied accounting, graduated with honors, got a job at a medium-sized firm in a decent neighborhood. He didn't earn much, about $3,000 a month, but he was stable, responsible, a good man. Just lonely. Until she arrived. Jessica showed up at his office one day in April, a health insurance salesperson. 28 years old, almost 15 years younger than my son. Tall, thin, with that kind of intimidating cold beauty. Straight hair down to her shoulders, perfectly manicured nails, clothes that made it clear she knew exactly the effect she had. Michael introduced me to her 3 weeks later. I still remember that afternoon. I made pot roast, mashed potatoes, and green beans. I put out my embroidered tablecloth, the one I only used for special occasions. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted her to see that my son came from a family with values, with a warm home. Jessica arrived late, 40 minutes late. She didn't even apologize. She sat at my table, looked at the pot roast as if it were something suspicious, and said, "Oh, I don't eat much. I'm watching my figure." Michael laughed nervously. I swallowed the comment like swallowing glass. During that meal, Jessica did exactly 3 things. Checked her phone every 2 minutes, talked about how expensive everything was in the city compared to the big city she came from, and asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes if I had ever thought about selling my house. "You know, this area is really appreciating," she said, running her finger along the rim of her water glass. "A property like this, even though it's small, and let's say traditional, could be worth about $250,000, maybe more. Have you ever considered it, Emily?" Emily. Not Mrs. Saldivar, not Mom, just Emily, as if we were friends the same age. Michael looked at her, captivated, as if every word from her mouth was divine wisdom. I smiled politely and changed the subject. But that night, after they left, I sat in my kitchen until 2 in the morning with a knot in my stomach I couldn't explain. 6 months later, they were married. 6 months. Not even a proper courtship. Michael called to give me the news like someone announcing they bought a new car. Excited, rushed, not letting me get a word in. "Mom, Jessica is incredible. She makes me so happy. We're getting married at the courthouse next Saturday. Just something simple. You, her 2 witnesses." Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy because they didn't have money for a wedding. Or rather, because Michael didn't have money. Because I later found out that Jessica had debts. Lots of debts. Credit cards maxed out on designer clothes, a personal loan of $3,500 that she never paid, and a history of jobs that lasted 6 months at most before she was fired or quit. But I didn't know any of that yet. On the wedding day, I brought a homemade cheesecake. Jessica didn't even try it. She said it had too many calories. And from that day on, my son began to disappear. Not physically, but in essence. The Sundays he always came over for dinner became less and less frequent. First every 2 weeks, then once a month, then almost never. When I asked him, he always had the same excuse. "Jessica has plans, Mom. You know how wives are." No, I didn't know. Because I was a wife, and I never kept my husband from his mother. The phone calls, which used to be daily, turned into short WhatsApp messages. "Busy, Mom. I'll call you later." But he never called. And when I finally visited them at their rented 2-bedroom apartment in a middle-class neighborhood, I felt Jessica timing every minute of my presence, like someone counting the seconds for an unwanted guest to leave. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was seeing how Michael repeated her words like a trained parrot. "Mom, don't you think you should think about moving somewhere smaller? Maintaining a house is a lot of work for a woman alone." "Mom, Jessica says you should be thinking about your future. Where are you going to live when you're older?" "Mom, is it true you have savings? Because if so, you could help us with a down payment on a better apartment. My son, my boy, the one I raised with so much sacrifice. Now he was the echo of a woman who barely knew him, and I stayed quiet. I nodded. I smiled. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I said something, if I confronted him, if I complained, I would lose him forever. So I swallowed every hurtful comment, every insinuation, every slight disguised as concern. Until that Tuesday of my retirement, until Jessica crossed the line she should never have crossed. And that's when something inside me said enough. But before everything exploded, things got much worse. Because Jessica didn't just want my car. She wanted my entire life. It wasn't a stab in the back. It was a slow poisoning designed so that no one would notice except me. The next 2 years after their wedding were like watching water erode a stone, drop by drop, day after day, until one day you wake up and there's nothing solid left to stand on. It all started with the loans. The first loan was 6 months after the wedding. A call from Michael, his voice heavy with shame. "Mom, could you lend us $500? Jessica had some unexpected medical expenses. We'll pay you back next month, I promise." $500. It was almost a third of my biweekly paycheck. But it was my son. Of course I gave it to them. They never paid me back. 3 months later. "Mom, we need $1,200 to fix Jessica's car. The engine broke down. It's urgent or she'll lose her job." $1,200 that I took from my emergency savings. They didn't pay that back either. Then it was $2,000 for an incredible investment opportunity Jessica had found. A multi-level marketing beauty products business that promised 300% returns. "Mom, this is going to change our lives. In 6 months, we'll pay you back triple." That business went bankrupt in 2 months. Jessica never mentioned it again, and I never saw that $2,000 again. In total during those 2 years, I lent them $7,300. $7,300 from a retired teacher earning $1,600 a month from her pension. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how Jessica started creeping into my life like poison ivy. It began with casual visits when I wasn't home. Michael had always had a copy of my keys for emergencies, but now Jessica used them to enter my house when I was out tutoring or grocery shopping. I'd come back and find things moved, drawers open, papers shuffled. "Oh, Emily, we just stopped by to drop this off, and I took the chance to look for that receipt you asked me for," Jessica would say when I confronted her on the phone with that sweet voice she used when she knew she'd done something wrong. But I had never asked her for any receipt. She was looking, searching, investigating. What was she looking for, I didn't know yet. Then came the comments about my house. "Oh, Mom, don't you think this house is too big for you alone? It has 3 bedrooms. You only use 1. It's such a waste. This area is dangerous for an older woman living alone. Have you thought about moving into a building with security safer, more practical? A 1-bedroom apartment would cost you $1,200 a month in rent, and you could sell this house. Imagine all that money in the bank." All that money that coincidentally she could help me manage. Michael nodded along to everything, like a puppet. The family Sundays, which used to be sacred, turned into interrogations disguised as conversation. "So how much do you get from your pension, Emily? Do you have life insurance? Whose name is it in? Have you made a will because you should? At your age, you never know." At my age, as if I were 90. I was 65. I was healthier than some 40-year-olds. But to Jessica, I was already a useless old woman waiting to die. And Michael said nothing. He never said anything. The worst moment came on a Sunday last November. We were eating chili I had been preparing since 6 in the morning. Michael had 2 helpings. Jessica barely touched hers as usual. Then in the middle of the meal, she dropped the bomb. "Emily, Michael and I have been thinking. We believe it would be best for you for your well-being if you considered the option of moving into a senior living facility." My blood ran cold. "A facility?" I asked, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Yes, but not just any. A quality one, where there are nurses' activities, people your age, where you won't be alone all day." It's what's best for you. What's best for me, know what's best for her, an empty house she could sell or rent. Mom, it's not a bad idea, Michael mumbled without looking me in the eye. You'd have more company. Company, me who had spent 40 years surrounded by children, colleagues, parents, me who had friends, neighbors alike. They wanted to lock me up in a home for the elderly as if I were already senile. I'm not going to any facility, I said with a firmness that surprised even myself. This is my house. I bought it with my own work, and this is where I'm staying. Jessica pressed her lips together. Michael looked down. They didn't bring up the subject again that day, but I knew they hadn't given up. In the following days, Jessica started a new strategy humiliating me in public. At a family gathering at my cousin Helen's house, Jessica said to everyone in front of me, "Oh, cousin, take good care of Emily. You know how old people are. They forget things. The other day she left the stove on, almost burned the house down." A lie. I had never left the stove on, but everyone looked at her with concern, and at me with pity. On another occasion at the supermarket, I ran into a former colleague. Jessica, who had come with me that day to help carry the bags, said to her, "Mrs. Lucy, how nice to see you. Say, do you know a good neurologist? Emily has been very forgetful lately. Michael and I are worried." I wasn't forgetful. My mind was clearer than ever. But Jessica was building a narrative, painting me as a senile old woman who needed a guardian. And worst of all, Michael didn't defend me. He never defended me. One day I confronted him when he came over alone to drop off some medication I had asked for. "Michael, why do you let Jessica talk about me like that?" He fell silent, staring at the floor, like when he was a boy and had done something wrong. "She doesn't speak ill of you, Mom. She's just worried." "Worried? She's making me look like I'm crazy." "Don't exaggerate, Mom. Jessica loves you very much. She just wants what's best for you." What's best for me? That phrase again. I realized something terrible in that moment. I had lost my son, not the physical Michael, but the Michael I knew. The noble boy, the grateful young man, the good man. That Michael had been replaced by a stranger who repeated his wife's words as if they were absolute truths. That night I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since my husband's death. Because losing a child to death is painful, but losing a child while they're still alive is unbearable. And just when I thought it couldn't hurt anymore, my retirement day came. The day Jessica decided my car was no longer mine. That was the day something inside me died, and something new, something stronger was born. There was a secret I'd kept for 25 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. That moment was about to arrive. But to understand why that secret was so important, I need to take you back 25 years to 1999. The year I met Mr. Stephen Morgan. Mr. Morgan lived in the house next door, a small one-story house with a front garden painted pale yellow with a purple bougainvillea climbing up the entire facade. He had been a widower for 10 years. No children, no close family. Just him, his memories, and his rose bushes. He was 73 when we met. I was 42 and had just been widowed. We became friends by chance. One afternoon I saw him struggling with grocery bags trying to open his door. I went over to help him. He invited me in for a coffee. I accepted. That cup of coffee became a ritual. Every Saturday afternoon after doing my shopping, I would stop by his house. Mr. Morgan would make coffee with cinnamon and brown sugar. I would bring sweet bread from the corner bakery. We would sit in his little living room filled with black and white photographs and talk about everything. Life, death god, loneliness. He told me things he had never told anyone. How much he missed his wife, Hope. How it hurt to wake up every morning in an empty bed. How the silence of a house without voices is the heaviest sound in the world. And I told him my fears. Fear of not being able to raise Michael alone. Fear of growing old without company. Fear that my life would be reduced to just working and surviving. Mr. Morgan listened to me with those wise eyes that only people who have lived a lot and suffered more have. Emily. He told me once, life takes a lot from us, but if you pay attention, it also gives you signs of who deserves your trust and who doesn't. Always keep an ace up your sleeve. Always. I didn't understand that phrase until years later. Over time, Mr. Morgan started needing more help. Small things at first. For me to pick up his medicine from the pharmacy, to accompany him to the doctor, to do his shopping when it rained heavily. I did it gladly without expecting anything in return because he reminded me of my own father who had died when I was 23, but Mr. Morgan didn't just have that yellow house where we lived. He had another property, one he had bought in the 70s, when a quiet getaway town nearby was still cheap and peaceful. A large plot with a 2-story house, a garden with fruit trees, a garage for 3 cars. He had bought it thinking he would retire there with his wife. But hope died before they could move, and Mr. Morgan never had the heart to go alone. He rented that property out. A few $100s a month back then, which was enough for him to supplement his pension. The years passed. Mr. Morgan turned 80, then 83, then 85. His health worsened. Diabetes, high blood pressure, his knees destroyed by arthritis. I went over every day. I cooked for him, gave him his medicine, bathed him when he couldn't do it himself. I accompanied him to the hospital for every emergency. Michael, who was 17 at the time, also helped him. He mowed his lawn, fixed things that broke. He read the newspaper to him when Mr. Morgan couldn't see well anymore. "That boy of yours has a heart of gold, Emily," Mr. Morgan would tell me. "You raised him well, very well." In 2009, Mr. Morgan had a heart attack. He survived, but he was left very weak. One October afternoon, he called me to his house. He was sitting in his favorite armchair, the brown leather one that creaked every time he moved. He had a manila envelope in his hands. "Sit down, Emily." I sat across from him, my heart heavy. I knew something important was coming. "I'm 90 years old. I don't have much time left. The doctors gave me 6 months, maybe less." My eyes filled with tears. I had grown to love him like a father. "I want you to know something. I have 2 nephews, sons of my brother who died 20 years ago. They live in another state. Do you know how many times they've visited me in these 10 years? I shook my head. None. 0. They call me once a year on Christmas, just to get it over with, nothing more. He opened the envelope and took out some papers. "This is the deed to my property in the getaway town. It's worth about $400,000 according to the last appraisal. I also have savings $45,000 in the bank." I was frozen. "Mr. Morgan, why are you telling me this?" "Because I want it to be yours. Everything. The house, the money. You've been the only real family I've had in these years. You and Michael." "I can't accept that," I said immediately. "What about your nephews?" "My nephews let me die alone. You gave me dignity in my final years." "It's already decided. I went to the lawyer last week. Everything is in your name. Legal, signed, sealed." I cried. I cried so much my chest hurt. "But I want to ask you for something," Mr. Morgan continued. "Don't tell anyone. Anyone. Not even Michael." "Not yet. Wait. Watch. Life will show you who deserves to know and who doesn't." "Why?" "Because money changes people, Emily. It brings out the worst in them. You are good. Too good. And good people are easy prey for vultures. So keep it, like an ace up your sleeve. And when the time comes that someone treats you like trash, when someone thinks you have nothing, when someone tries to strip you of your dignity, then you pull it out. And show them you were always stronger than they thought." Mr. Morgan died 3 months later in January of 2010. His 2 nephews showed up at his funeral dressed in suits asking about the inheritance. The lawyer informed them that everything had been left to Emily Saldivar. To me. They almost sued me. They said I had manipulated him, that I was a gold digger, that I had surely blackmailed him. But all the papers were in order. Mr. Morgan had even left a letter explaining his reasons. The judge dismissed the case. The nephews disappeared. I never heard from them again. And I did exactly what Mr. Morgan asked. I kept the secret. I didn't tell anyone, not my family, not my closest friends. Nobody. I kept the house rented. I raised the rent over the years. It now generated over $1,000 a month that went straight into a separate bank account nobody knew about. For 15 years, that money grew. I invested it wisely. I paid off the mortgage on my house. I saved. I waited. I waited to see who would love me for who I was, not for what I had. Michael passed the test for years. He was a good son, grateful, affectionate, until Jessica came along. And then I saw my son transform into a stranger who saw me as a source of assets, as a property to be managed, as a burden to be removed. Mr. Morgan was right. Money brings out the worst in people. And I had the perfect ace up my sleeve, an ace I was about to show. Because when Jessica walked into my house that Tuesday, demanding the keys to my car, when she treated me like a useless old woman, when she thought she could strip me of the little I had left, she made the stupidest decision of her life, because she didn't know who she was messing with, and I was ready to show her. My retirement should have been a celebration. It became my living funeral. It was exactly 1 week before the incident with the car. A Friday afternoon. Michael had called me that morning with that forced, cheerful voice he used when Jessica dictated what to say. "Mom, we want to celebrate your retirement. Jessica is organizing a special lunch at our apartment, this Sunday at 2. Don't be late." I should have been suspicious, but a part of me, that foolish part that still had hope, thought that maybe, just maybe, my son remembered who I was, what I meant to him, how naive I was. That Sunday, I got dressed with care. I put on my sky blue dress, the one Michael had given me 3 years ago for my birthday. I put on a soft pink lipstick. I styled my gray hair, which I now wore short, shoulder length. I wanted to look good, dignified. I brought a carrot cake that I had baked since 6 in the morning, Michael's favorite since he was a child. When I arrived at their apartment, I knocked on the door with my heart beating fast, hope mixed with fear. Michael opened. He gave me a quick, mechanical hug, the kind of hug you give out of obligation, not love. "Come in, Mom." The apartment smelled of store-bought rotisserie chicken, not home-cooked food. Jessica was sitting in the living room with her laptop open on the coffee table. She was wearing gray sweatpants and a white blouse. She hadn't even bothered to get dressed for the celebration. She didn't stand up to greet me. "Hi, Emily. Leave the cake in the kitchen." Not "what a beautiful cake." Not "thanks for going to the trouble." Nothing. I left it in the kitchen and returned to the living room. I sat on the single armchair, the furthest from the two of them who were together on the main sofa, as if they were judges and I was the accused. "Well, Mom," Michael began, clearing his throat nervously, "Jessica and I want to talk to you about something important." Jessica turned the laptop towards me. On the screen was an Excel sheet. Numbers, calculations, percentages. "Emily, we made a life plan for you so that your retirement will be more comfortable and secure." A life plan, made by her without consulting me. "What kind of plan?" I asked, feeling my stomach clench. Jessica smiled, that shark-like smile she used when she thought she had total control. "Look, we analyzed your financial situation. Your pension is $1,600 a month, correct?" I hadn't told anyone that figure. How did she know? Then I remembered. My retirement papers, the ones I was reviewing last Tuesday when she walked in without knocking. She had seen them, probably photographed them. "That's correct," I replied in a cold voice. "Good, so here's the plan." She pointed to the screen. "First, we're going to sell your car. It's a 2010 sedan. According to the quotes I got, we can get $4,500 for it. It's not much, but it helps." "Wait," I interrupted. "We're going to sell who is we." "You obviously," Jessica said impatiently as if I were stupid. "But we're going to help you with the process because you don't understand these things." I took a deep breath. I didn't say anything yet. "Second point," she continued. "Your pension, $1,600, is a good income for a single person, but we think you should contribute to the family. Michael is your only son. He raised you well. You raised him, but now it's time to give back." Give back. As if raising a child was a business transaction. "We propose that you donate 60% of your monthly pension to help us. That's $960. You'd be left with $640, more than enough for your basic expenses if you live modestly. $600 to pay for electricity, water, gas, phone, food, medicine, emergencies. And how exactly would this help me?" I asked. "Because you'd be helping your family, Emily," Jessica replied in that condescending tone you use with small children. "Michael and I need to save for a down payment on a bigger apartment. We want to have children soon. Your future grandchild will need space." future grandchild, using a baby that didn't even exist as emotional blackmail. Michael was staring at the floor. Coward. A complete coward. Third point. Jessica printed a sheet and handed it to me. We need you to sign a power of attorney. It's just for security. In case something happens to you, Michael can handle your legal and financial affairs without complications. A power of attorney. Complete access to my house, my accounts, my documents. And if I don't want to sign? Jessica laughed. A fake, uncomfortable laugh. Emily, don't be stubborn. This is for your own good. At your age, things can happen quickly. An accident, an illness. Do you want Michael to have to struggle with bureaucrats while you're in the hospital? Think logically. Logic. She was talking about logic while planning to strip me of everything. And when do you need my answer? Now would be ideal. I have the appointment with the lawyer scheduled for Tuesday. Of course, she already had everything arranged without asking me, without considering me. I need to think about it, I said, getting up from the armchair. Mom, sit down, Michael finally said, looking at me for the first time. We haven't eaten. I'm not hungry. But you brought cake. Leave it for Jessica, maybe she'll appreciate it. I took my purse and walked to the door. Emily, you're being very childish, Jessica shouted from behind me. We just want to help you. I didn't turn around. I didn't answer. I walked down the building's stairs with my legs trembling. I got to my car. I sat behind the wheel. And there, in that parking lot with the engine off and the windows closed, I broke. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, deep sobs that came from my stomach, tears that soaked my sky-blue dress, the one Michael had given me when he was still my son. It wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was because my son, my only son, the boy I raised alone, the one I hugged when he cried at night missing his father, the one who told me, "You're the best mom in the world," every birthday. That son saw me as a burden, as a source of assets, as something to be managed, not as a mother, as a liability. I drove home without remembering the way. I walked into my empty living room. I sat on my armchair, and I stayed there in the dark looking at the photographs on the wall. Michael at 5 in his elementary school uniform, Michael at 15 at his middle school graduation, Michael at 24 the day he got his accounting degree. In all those photos, I was by his side, smiling proud. At what point did I become his enemy? I picked up my phone. I almost dialed. I almost gave in. I almost told them, "Okay, take everything, I'll sign whatever you want, just don't abandon me." But then my gaze fell on the photo of Mr. Morgan that I had on my small altar next to the Virgin Mary and the photo of my husband. Mr. Morgan looked at me with those wise eyes, and I remembered his words. Vultures only respect those who fly higher than them. I put the phone down. I went to my closet. From the back behind the boxes of old shoes, I pulled out a locked metal box. I opened it. There they were. All the documents. The deed to the house in the getaway town, the bank statements, the investments, the proof that I was not the vulnerable old woman Jessica thought I was. I took out my cell phone and dialed a number I had saved for years. "Mr. Bermudez, it's Emily Saldivar. I need to update my will." "Can you see me tomorrow?" "Of course, Mrs. Emily. At 11. "Perfect." I hung up, and I smiled for the first time in weeks. A smile that wasn't of joy. It was of determination. Because Jessica had just awakened something in me that had been dormant for too long. My dignity. And I was about to remind everyone that Emily Saldivar was not a victim. She was a survivor. And survivors don't give up. They fight back. That night I cried all the tears I had held back for 40 years of being strong. It was 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Insomnia had become my most faithful companion since that disastrous Sunday lunch. I got out of bed, put on my old cotton robe, and walked barefoot to the living room. The house was completely silent. That heavy silence only known by those who live alone. The silence that amplifies every thought, every fear, every pain. I sat on the sofa, hugged my knees to my chest like a scared little girl, and looked at the photographs filling the shelf next to the television. There was Michael everywhere. Baby Michael wrapped in his blue blanket. 3-year-old Michael with his red tricycle. 7-year-old Michael the day his father died, clinging to my skirt with eyes swollen from crying. I took that photo in my hands. I studied it as if I could find answers in that boy, frozen in time. Where was that boy now? At what moment did I lose him? I remembered the day of his father's accident. Charles, my husband of 12 years, a construction worker, honest to the core, the kind of man who would share his sandwich with any co-worker who didn't have lunch. He fell from a 5th-floor scaffolding, died instantly. The construction company gave us nothing. They said it was his own negligence that he didn't use the harness correctly. Lies, but we were poor without lawyers, without a voice. I was left alone with Michael. 7 years old, 1st grade. I remember that first night without Charles. Michael couldn't sleep. He climbed into my bed crying. "Mommy, why did Daddy go away?" "He didn't go away, my love. He had to go to heaven." "Why didn't he take us?" "Because we have to stay here, but he's watching over us from above." That night I promised him something. I whispered it in his ear as I rocked him in my arms. "I promise you'll never lack for anything. I promise you'll get an education. I promise you'll have a better life than your dad and I had. I promise." And I kept my promise. Boy, did I keep it. I worked myself to the bone. I worked double shifts when I could. Teacher in the morning at the public school. Private tutoring in the afternoons. On Saturdays, I sold pies I made starting at 4 in the morning. On Sundays, I did laundry for other people. Michael never knew how many times I went to bed without dinner so he could have breakfast. He never knew how many times I pawned my gold earrings, my necklace, my wedding ring to pay for his school supplies. He never knew I sold the only television we had to pay for his college entrance exam. I protected him from all of that. I wanted his childhood to be as normal as possible, so he wouldn't carry the guilt of our poverty, and I succeeded. Michael graduated from accounting with honors. I was in the front row on his graduation day, clapping until my hands hurt, my eyes flooded with pride. After the ceremony, he hugged me tight like when he was a boy. "Mom, everything I am is because of you. Everything. I'll never forget it. I promise." Where did that promise go? Where was that man who hugged me 20 years ago? I wiped the tears with the back of my hand, but they kept coming, like an overflowing river, because the pain wasn't just for Michael. It was for everything, for the years of sacrifice that now seemed worthless. For the sleepless nights caring for him when he had a fever, for the times I walked in the rain because I didn't have bus fare, for the birthdays I spent alone because I was working to give him his, for the life I didn't live because I invested it in him and now he saw me as a burden. I picked up my phone, 3:15 in the morning. I dialed Jessica's number. My finger trembled over the call button. I almost did it. I almost called her to say, "Okay, you win. You can have the car, the money, whatever you want. Just don't take my son from me. Just let me be a part of his life." Because that's what hurt the most. Not losing the money, not losing the car, losing Michael. My finger was millimeters from pressing the button. But then my gaze drifted to the altar in the corner of the living room. There was the Virgin Mary my mother had given me when I got married. The flickering candle cast shadows on the photographs. The photo of Charles, my husband, with his huge smile and his calloused hands from so much work. The photo of my parents, both deceased now. My mother in her floral apron, my father in his straw hat. And the photo of Mr. Morgan with his beige sweater and thick glasses, looking at me with that wisdom that only life can give. Mr. Morgan. I remembered a conversation we had shortly before his death. We were in his garden. He was watering his roses. I was helping him hold the hose because his hands no longer had the strength. "Emily, do you know the difference between kindness and foolishness?" "No, Mr. Morgan. Kindness is giving when you have it to give. Foolishness is giving when you're being robbed. Kindness is helping someone in need. Foolishness is letting yourself be used by someone who just wants to take advantage." And how do you know which is which? When someone you claim to love treats you worse than a stranger, there's your answer. I stood up from the sofa, put the phone away, walked to the altar, lit a new candle. "Mr. Morgan," I whispered in the quiet, "you told me to keep my ace up my sleeve. You told me to wait for the right moment. I think that moment has arrived." The silence of the house seemed to answer me not with words but with certainty. I went back to my room. From the closet I took out the metal box. I opened it on my bed. Documents proof my true assets. The deed to the house now valued at $400,000. The bank statements $45,000 saved over 15 years. The records of the rental income over $1,000 a month for the last 10 years. I took out a calculator and started adding up everything Jessica and Michael didn't know existed. The total took my breath away. Over $445,000. Me, the retired teacher who was useless. The old woman who needed help managing her affairs. The woman they wanted to force a power of attorney on to control her. I had nearly $500,000 and they had no idea. A part of me, the weak part, still felt guilty. Still thought, but he's my son, I should share this with him. But then I remembered his eyes from Sunday. Those eyes that looked at me not as a mother, but as a commodity. I remembered how he didn't defend me when Jessica humiliated me. I remembered the $7,300 I lent him that he never paid back. I remembered every venomous comment from Jessica that he allowed. And something inside me hardened like cement drying under the sun. Michael had made his choice. He chose Jessica. He chose greed. He chose to treat me as a burden. Now I would make mine. I took out my address book. I looked for a name. Lucy Carter. Lucy, my former student. One of the best students I had in 40 years of teaching. Bright, hardworking, a dreamer. Life hit her hard. At 23, she had a son, Sebastian, with cerebral palsy. The father disappeared when he found out about the diagnosis. Now Lucy was 28. She worked cleaning houses, 5 houses a day, from 6 in the morning to 9 at night, earning $50 per house, $250 a day when she got all 5 houses, all for Sebastian's therapies, physical therapy 3 times a week, $100 a session. She didn't have a car. She took Sebastian on the bus. 3 buses, an hour and a half each way, with a 5-year-old boy in a wheelchair. I saw her from time to time. I brought her groceries. I gave her some money when I could, but never as much as she needed. I looked at the clock. 4 in the morning. I would wait until 7 to call her. I lay down again. This time I managed to sleep for 2 hours. When I woke up, it was a new day, and I was a new Emily, one who was no longer going to ask permission to defend her dignity. While they were planning to dispossess me, I had already moved all the pieces on the board. At 7 in the morning sharp, I dialed Lucy's number. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. "Hello?" Her voice sounded tired. She had probably been up for an hour already getting Sebastian ready for the day. "Lucy, it's Teacher Emily." "Teacher?" Her voice lit up immediately. "How are you? Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine, my dear. Listen, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come to my house today, around 9? There was a pause. I heard the sound of clattering dishes in the background. "Well, teacher, I have 4 houses scheduled today. I can't miss them because I'll pay you for the full day, $250. I just need 2 hours of your time." Another pause. Longer. "Are you okay, teacher? Did something bad happen?" I laughed. A genuine laugh for the first time in days. "On the contrary, Lucy. If something very good is going to happen to you, trust me." "Okay, I'll be there at 9. I hung up and started to get ready. I showered. I got dressed in black pants and a wine-colored blouse. I put my hair up. I put on my silver earrings that I only wore on special occasions. Today was a special occasion. I made coffee, set out sweet rolls. I set the table as if I were receiving someone important. Because Lucy was important, more important than Jessica could ever be. At 5 to 9, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. There was Lucy. 28, but she looked 35. Hard work ages you. She was wearing worn-out jeans, old sneakers, a long-sleeved blouse with a bleach stain on the shoulder. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, no makeup, deep dark circles under her eyes, but her eyes shone. They always shone. "Teacher." She hugged me tightly. She smelled of cheap soap and exhaustion. "Come in, my dear. Sit down." I led her to the living room. I served her coffee and a roll. She ate like someone who hadn't had breakfast. She probably hadn't. "And Sebastian?" I asked. With my mom. She watches him while I work. She wiped the crumbs from her lips. Teacher, what do you need me for? I sat across from her. I took her hands in mine. They were rough-chapped, the hands of a woman who works tirelessly. Lucy, do you remember what you wrote to me in your 6th grade graduation card? She blushed. Teacher, that was 17 years ago. I remember it. You said, Teacher Emily, you taught me that being poor doesn't mean being less, that with hard work and education I can go anywhere I want. Someday I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to help kids like me, and it will all be thanks to you. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. I didn't become a doctor, she whispered. I'm sorry, teacher. I disappointed you. You didn't disappoint me. Life threw obstacles at you that no one should have to face alone, but you keep fighting. And you're still that brilliant girl who never gives up. And that's worth more than 1,000 college degrees. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. What can I do for you, teacher? I took a deep breath. This was important. I had to say it right. I need you to come with me to take care of some paperwork today. And after that, I want to give you something. Give me something, teacher. I can't accept anything. You already do so much for... It's my car. She froze. She looked at me as if she hadn't understood. What? My 2010 silver sedan. I want to give it to you. Today, now, for you. Lucy shook her head, tears now streaming freely. No, teacher. I can't. It's your car. You need it. You need it more. You take Sebastian on 3 buses for his therapies. That's 4 hours of travel every day. With my car, you could do it in 40 minutes. You could work more houses, earn more, give your son better therapy. But teacher, Lucy. My voice became firm. Listen to me carefully. For 40 years I was a teacher. I taught hundreds of children. Most of them forgot me. Some remember me in December. They send me a Christmas text and that's it. But you have always been there. When I had pneumonia 3 years ago, you came every other day to bring me soup. When I turned 65, you were the only former student who brought me a cake. Every May you send me flowers for Teacher's Day, even though I know you don't have money for your own expenses. She was sobbing now. It's because you were the only one who believed in me, teacher. When everyone said I was a dumb kid from a poor neighborhood, you told me I was smart. You got me the scholarship for middle school. You gave me books. You taught me that I was worth something. And now I want this car to teach you something else. That in this world there are still people who give without expecting anything in return. That gratitude without strings attached still exists. That your worth doesn't depend on what you have but on who you are. I hugged her as she cried on my shoulder. 30 minutes later we were at the DMV. The process was surprisingly fast. $300. I paid it without blinking. In 2 hours the car was legally in Lucy Carter's name. I handed her the keys. She took them with trembling hands. Teacher, I don't know how to thank you. You've already thanked me with years of genuine affection. That's more than my own family has given me. We left the building. The sedan was parked outside, shining under the midday sun. Lucy walked around it touching the hood as if it weren't real. It's mine, she whispered. It's really mine. It's yours. She got in, adjusted the seat, the rearview mirror, put her hands on the steering wheel, and closed her eyes. I'll take care of it like gold, teacher, I swear. And every time I drive it, I'll think of you. Just promise me one thing. Anything. When Sebastian is older, when you're doing better, when life smiles on you again, pay it forward. Help someone who needs it just as I helped you, just as you helped take care of me. Love multiplies when it's shared. I promise, teacher. I promise. She drove away slowly, carefully. I watched her go and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. I walked back to my house. It was 12:30. At 2 p.m, the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I opened the door. There was Jessica, dressed in black slacks and a white blouse, hair down, perfect makeup. And behind her, a man in his 50s, paunchy, with a t-shirt that said, I buy cars. Hello, Emily. I came for the car keys. Her voice was one of anticipated triumph. This is Mr. Jack. He's going to give you $4,500 in cash. No checks or transfers, cash. $4,500 that was surely going straight into her pocket. I stood in the doorway, calm, serene. Jessica, could you come with me to the driveway? She frowned, confused by my calm tone. What for? Just give me the keys. Come with me. I walked towards the side driveway of the house. She and Mr. Jack followed me. We arrived at the space where my sedan always was. Empty. Completely empty. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then Jessica exploded. Where is the car? I looked her in the eyes, without fear, without trembling. I gave it away. Her face went through 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, fury, panic, hatred. You what? I gave it away to someone who really needed it, someone who actually deserves my generosity. You're crazy. That car was worth $4,500. It was my car. I decided what to do with it. Mr. Jack cleared his throat uncomfortably. Listen, lady, if there's no car, I'm leaving. Wait, Jessica grabbed his arm. She's going to get that car back. Right, Emily. No. I'm going to sue you. That car was family property. I smiled, that smile that was now my weapon. It was never family property, Jessica. It was my private property, and what's mine I do with as I please, without your permission. Without anyone's permission. She pulled out her phone and dialed frantically. Michael, your mother gave away the car. Yes, she gave it away. Come here right now. She hung up and looked at me with a hatred she no longer bothered to hide. This isn't over, you useless old woman. And it was in that moment that I knew the mask had fallen for good. The real monster had just come out into the light. There I saw the real monster without disguises, without smiles, just greed and hatred. Mr. Jack left stammering apologies. Jessica and I stood in the empty driveway, staring at each other like 2 gladiators in the arena. I'm going into my house, I said calmly. You can leave or stay on the street, but you are not coming in. And of course I'm coming in. I'm going to wait for Michael to get here. On the street. I closed the door in her face. I heard her screaming from the other side, words I never thought anyone would say to me, insults a daughter-in-law should never say to her mother-in-law. But I didn't care anymore. I sat in my living room. I poured a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking. My heart was beating steadily. It was strange. After months of fear, of doubt, of wanting to please everyone now, I only felt clarity. 20 minutes later, I heard Michael's car pull up outside his door, slamming shut. Agitated voices. Jessica crying, screaming, explaining. Then the banging on my door. Mom, open up. I stood up slowly. I opened it. Michael was distraught, sweaty. He had rushed from his job. He was still wearing his ID badge around his neck. Jessica was behind him, her eyes red, makeup, smeared hair disheveled. She no longer looked like the perfectly put-together woman. She looked like what she was, a desperate woman who had just lost $4,500. Mom, what did you do? Michael's voice trembled between confusion and anger. I gave my car away. To whom? To Lucy Carter. Remember her, my former student. The one with a son with cerebral palsy. That car was worth money, Jessica shouted from behind. It was my money, I replied without losing my composure. You had no right. Jessica tried to push past, but Michael stopped her with his arm. Mom. Michael took a deep breath, trying to calm down. We needed that car. Jessica and I had plans. You two have a lot of plans with my things, Michael, but you never ask me. Because you're our family. Family is supposed to help each other. Helping is different from dispossessing. Nobody is dispossessing you. Jessica managed to push Michael aside and enter my house. You're an ungrateful old woman. Michael supported you your whole life, and this is how you repay him. I laughed a dry, humorless laugh. Michael supported me. Is that what you told him, Jessica? It's the truth. I turned to my son. I looked him straight in the eye. Michael Saldivar, look me in the eye and tell me, did you ever support me? He looked down. That gave me the answer. Let me refresh your memory, my voice rising for the first time. I supported you since you were 7 years old. I worked double shifts. I sold pies. I did other people's laundry. I went to bed without dinner so you could eat. I sold my television to pay for your college entrance exam. I paid for your entire degree. And when you graduated, when you started working, the only thing I asked was for you to visit me on Sundays. Nothing more. Not a single dollar. Just your time. Michael swallowed hard. Mom, And then she came along. I pointed at Jessica. And the Sundays became bi-weekly, then monthly, then almost never. And when you did come, it was to ask me for money. $500, $1,200, $2,000, $7,300 in 2 years, Michael. How much of that have you paid back? Silence. Zero. Nothing. And still, I never held it against you, because you were my son. Because I thought you needed it. We did need it, Jessica screamed. Shut up, I told her with a coldness that made her step back. You are not part of this conversation. This is between my son and me. I'm his wife. You're a leech. Jessica lunged at me. Michael stopped her just in time. Let me go. This old hag needs someone to tell her the truth. My truths. I approached her without fear. You want truths, Jessica? I'll give you truths. I know that when Michael met you, you had $3,500 of credit card debt. I know you were fired from 3 jobs in 2 years. I know that the beauty business I put $2,000 of my savings into was a pyramid scheme that you knew was going to fail. How? Her face turned pale. Because I'm not the idiotic old woman you think I am. Because I hired a private investigator 6 months ago when you started hinting at the power of attorney. Because my gut told me something was rotten. And I was right. I took a folder from my bookshelf. I opened it in front of them. Photographs, documents, bank statements. These are your current debts, Jessica. Over $12,000. What have you been paying for with Michael's salary while you spend on clothes salons and expensive restaurants with your friends? Michael took the folder. His hands trembled as he flipped through the papers. Jessica, is this real? I can explain. And this. Michael pointed to another photo. Who is this man? It was a photo of Jessica in a cafe with a man about 35 holding hands. He's my cousin. Your cousin lives in another state, Jessica. You said so yourself. This man is David Smith, a bank manager, married 2 kids. And your lover for the past 8 months. The silence was absolute. Michael dropped the folder. He looked at her as if he had never seen her before. Are you cheating on me? No. That photo is taken out of context. Your mother is lying. The investigator has 23 more photos and videos, in hotels, in his car, in apartments he rents by the hour. Jessica looked at me with a hatred so pure I could almost touch it. Why? Michael whispered, his voice broken. Why did you marry me if you didn't love me? Jessica didn't answer. I answered for her. Because she thought you were a fool with a rich mother. She thought I had properties, savings, inheritances. She thought if she married you, she could manipulate you to take everything from me. That's why the constant visits. That's why she went through my drawers. That's why the power of attorney. That's why she wanted to sell my things, put me in a home, make me disappear. Lies. Jessica was hysterical now. It's all lies from this resentful old woman. Resentful? My voice turned to steel. I'd be resentful if I had stayed quiet, if I'd signed your power of attorney, if I'd let you lock me in a home while you took my house. But I'm not resentful, Jessica. I'm smart, something you never were. She lunged at me again. This time Michael couldn't stop her in time. She pushed me. I fell onto the sofa. Go to hell, you bitter old woman. This is all your fault. If you weren't so selfish, if you had just given us what we asked for, none of this would have happened. Michael grabbed her by the arms and pulled her back. Get out of here. Get out of my mother's house. Let me go. I said get out. He literally dragged her to the door. She screamed, cried, kicked. Michael, don't do this to me. I love you. She's lying to you. She wants to separate us. He got her out onto the street and closed the door. Vanessa pounded from the outside, shouting obscenities, threatening crying. Michael leaned against the door, breathing heavily, his eyes full of tears. And then he broke down. He slid down to the floor, his back against the door, his head in his hands, and he cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. I'm sorry, Mom, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. What have I done? What have I done?" I sat on the floor next to him. I put my hand on his back, and for the first time in months, I felt like my son had come back. But the pain was just beginning to heal, and the revelations weren't over yet. That's when I took out the manila envelope that had been waiting for years. Michael was still on the floor, sobbing with his face in his hands. Outside, Jessica had stopped shouting. I heard her car start the tires screeching on the pavement as she sped away. I stood up slowly. My knees protested. 67 years weigh heavily when you carry so much pain. "Michael, get up. Come to the table." He looked at me with his swollen red eyes. He looked like a lost child. "Mom, I ruined everything. Everything." "Get up." He obeyed like an automaton. He sat in the dining room chair, hunched over, defeated. I sat across from him. I placed the manila envelope on the table. That yellowish envelope that I had kept in my closet for years. The one that contained my truth, my secret, my ace up my sleeve. "Before we talk about your marriage, about Jessica, about what you're going to do now, I need to show you something." "What is that?" "Your inheritance, or what was going to be your inheritance." He frowned, confused. I opened the envelope. I took out the documents one by one, placing them in front of him like poker cards on the table. First, the deed to the property in the getaway town. Michael took it. He read. His eyes widened like saucers. This is a house, a 2-story house with a garden. Half an acre of land in a private community, valued at $400,000. Whose is it? Mine. The paper trembled in his hands. Since when? Since 2010, 15 years ago. 15 years and you never told me? No. Why? I took a deep breath. This was the hard part. Because Mr. Morgan, my neighbor, the man you used to help when you were a teenager, left it to me before he died, along with his savings. He asked me not to tell anyone, to wait. To watch and see who loved me, for who I was, not for what I had. I took out the second document, the bank statements. $45,000 in savings, plus what the rental property generates. Over $1,000 a month for the last 10 years. Money I invested, that I saved, that I multiplied. Michael stared at the papers as if they were written in another language. Mom, you have $445,000 in total. Yes. He put his hands to his head. He closed his eyes. It can't be. It can't be. I took out the third document, the one that hurt the most to show. This is my will, the one I made a year ago, shortly after you married Jessica. I slid it towards him. He read it in silence. His lips moved, forming the words without sound. He finished reading. He looked at me with fresh tears in his eyes. You were leaving me. Everything. 100%. The house, the savings, this house. Everything. For you, my only son. Mom. But something started to change. You started to change. The visits became less frequent, the loans more constant, Jessica more aggressive. And I started to doubt. Doubt what? Whether you really loved me, or if you were just waiting for me to die to inherit. No, Mom, no, I never... Let me finish. I held up my hand. So I made a decision 3 months ago. I went to the lawyer again. I took out the fourth document. The new will dated just 2 months ago. This is my updated will signed on August 15th, 2025. I handed it to him. I watched his face go from shock to absolute horror. Only 30%. Only 30% for you. The remaining 70% is divided among 3 of my former students. Lucy Carter, to whom I gave the car this morning, Marcela Olvera, who takes care of me when I get sick, and Rosario Tellez, who visits me every Sunday to play dominoes and chat. But Mom, I'm your son. And they are the ones who treat me like a human being, the ones who call to ask how I am, without wanting anything in return. The ones who hug me with genuine affection, not with self-interest. I love you, Mom. I love you. Love me now that I'm alive, Michael, not when I'm dead. He broke down again. He cried with deep, gut-wrenching sobs. "Forgive me. Please forgive me. I was an idiot. A complete idiot. I let Jessica poison me. I let her manipulate me. I failed you. I failed the only person who was always there for me." I stood up. I went around the table. I knelt beside him, ignoring the pain in my knees. I took his face in my hands as I did when he was a child and needed me to look him in the eyes. "Michael, look at me." He opened his eyes, those eyes that were identical to his father's. "I forgive you. Really, really, because you're my son. Because I love you. Because I know that the Michael I raised is still in there, buried under Jessica's lies. But what? Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiving doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. Forgiving means I'm not going to carry the resentment. But trust, that has to be rebuilt. And it takes time. Whatever time you need, Mom. Whatever time you need. And that will is not going to change. Not for now. I need to see actions, not words. I need to see that you've truly learned your lesson." He nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. "And Jessica is your problem, not mine. You decide what to do with your marriage. But I'll tell you something. A woman who cheats on you, who uses you, who manipulates your mother, that woman doesn't love you. She never did. I know. Now I know." He sat there staring at the documents scattered on the table. My entire financial life exposed, all my secrets revealed. "For years I thought you were a poor teacher, barely surviving on your pension," he said finally, his voice hollow. "And it turns out you're a millionaire." "I'm not a millionaire, Michael. I'm a woman who learned to be cautious. Who learned that money gives you options, but it doesn't give you love. Who learned that sometimes you have to keep secrets to protect yourself. From your own family. From anyone who sees you as a resource, not a person." A long silence, only the ticking of the wall clock. "What do I do now, Mom? Now you go home. You're going to think things through. You're going to decide if you want to stay with Jessica or not. And you're going to start building your own life without depending on me, without waiting for my money. Just you. Will you let me see you? Whenever you want, but with rules. You call before you come. You don't bring Jessica unless I authorize it, which isn't going to happen anytime soon. And you come because you want to see me, not because you need something." "I accept. Anything." He stood up. I did too. We hugged. A long, tight hug, the kind that says everything words can't. "I love you, Mom. I really do love you. And I you, my boy. Always." He left with his shoulders slumped, defeated, but aware. I watched his car drive away through the window. I sat in my favorite armchair. Silence. My house. Empty. Quiet. For the first time in years, that silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like peace. I picked up my phone and called Lucy. "Teacher, how's the car?" "Teacher, you have no idea. Sebastian is so happy. He cried with joy." We made the trip to therapy in 35 minutes. 35. What used to take us 3 hours. I smiled. A genuine warm smile. "I'm so glad, my dear." "Teacher, are you okay?" "You sound strange." "I'm perfect, Lucy. For the first time in a long time, I'm perfect." I hung up. I looked at the altar. Mr. Morgan looked at me from his photograph. "You were right, old friend. Vultures only respect those who fly higher than them." And today I flew. That night, I slept for 9 straight hours. No nightmares, no insomnia, just peace. Because I had gotten back something more valuable than $400,000. I had gotten back my dignity, and no one ever again was going to take it from me. I didn't seek revenge. I sought to teach them what they never learned. The value of respect. 2 weeks passed since that day. 2 weeks of absolute silence from Jessica. 2 weeks of daily calls from Michael. Awkward and nervous at first, then increasingly genuine. "Good morning, Mom. How did you sleep? Have you had breakfast yet? Do you need me to bring you anything from the store?" I remembered today is the anniversary of Dad's death. I'm going to take flowers to the cemetery. Want to come with me? Small gestures, genuine attempts to reconnect. I responded cautiously, with affection, yes, but with clear boundaries. Good morning, son. I'm fine. I've already had breakfast, thank you, but you can come over for coffee if you want. Yes, I'll go with you, but come alone. And he came alone. The Michael who arrived at my door was no longer the hunched, manipulated man who repeated someone else's words. He was someone more awake, more conscious, still hurting, but fighting to come back. One October afternoon, he arrived with a grocery bag. I brought you those cookies you like. And some coffee. Thank you, son. I made coffee. We sat at the dining room table like before, like when things were simple. Mom, I need to tell you something. My heart tensed. Here it came. Tell me. I'm going to divorce Jessica. I said nothing. I just waited. I already spoke with a lawyer. It's an at-fault divorce, adultery proven. I have the photos you gave me, and the investigator gave me more evidence, videos, messages, everything. How do you feel? A bitter laugh. Like an idiot. Like the stupidest man on the planet. I was married for 3 years to someone who never loved me, who only used me, and I was happy believing I was loved. You're not an idiot. You were naive. There's a difference. What's that? Idiots don't learn. Naive people do. He took his coffee. His hands trembled slightly. Jessica tried to contact me. She sent me like 100 messages, crying. Saying everything was a lie, that you made up the photos, that this David guy is just a friend, that I'm the love of her life. And what did you say? Nothing. I blocked her from everywhere. Phone, WhatsApp, social media. Everything. I don't want to ever hear from her again. And she accepted that, no. She came to my work, made a scene, crying in front of all my coworkers. Saying I was abandoning her for no reason, that my mom had brainwashed me. I sighed. I'm sorry, son. Don't be sorry. She dug her own grave. Security escorted her out of the building. My boss called me into his office. I explained the situation. He was understanding, but he told me if she comes back, he'll have to call the police. Silence. I also found out more things, Michael continued, his voice cracking more and more. This David guy isn't the only one. There was another man before, and another before that. Jessica has a pattern. She looks for men with some money. She marries or moves in with them. She squeezes them dry until they have nothing left, and then she moves on to the next one. How did you find out? The investigator kept digging. He found her ex-boyfriend, an accountant like me. She did the same thing to him. Left him with $20,000 in debt. The poor guy is still paying off credit cards she used. I stood up. I went around the table. I hugged my son from behind. I'm so sorry, Michael. Me too, Mom. I'm sorry for exposing you to that. I'm sorry for bringing that snake into our family. It's over now. Do you really forgive me? I already told you. I forgive you. But trust takes time. He nodded against my shoulder. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, someone knocked on my door. I opened it. Jessica. But not the put-together, perfect, controlled Jessica. This was a different woman. Unwashed hair in a messy bun, no makeup, deep dark circles, dirty jeans, old sweatshirt. Emily. What do you want? To talk, please. Just 5 minutes. Everything in me said to shut the door, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe the need for closure, made me step back. 5 minutes. At the door. You're not coming in. She stood in the doorway looking at the floor. I came to apologize. I don't believe you. It's the truth. I know I messed up. I know I ruined everything. I know I should never have treated you the way I did. Is that all you came to say? I came to ask you to talk to Michael, to tell him to give me another chance. That I've changed. And there it was, the real reason. I'm not doing that, Jessica. Please. He listens to you. If you tell him to forgive me, he will. Exactly. He listens to me. That's why I'm not going to ask him to do something that will destroy him again. I love him. No. You love what he represents, stability, an easy fool to manipulate. Access to me, to my money. That's not true. Then why were you unfaithful? Why did you use him? Why was every conversation you had with me about getting something from me? Silence. She had no answer. Jessica, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. My son deserves someone who truly loves him, someone who values him, someone who doesn't see him as a means to get money. You were never that person, and you never will be. You're a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy. And there it was, the real monster again. My son wasn't happy with you. He was your prisoner. He chose me, not you. And now he has unchosen you. Live with it. I closed the door. She screamed from the other side. Poisonous words, empty threats. This isn't over. You're going to regret this. I didn't listen anymore. I turned up the volume on the radio. 10 minutes later, she was gone. She never came back. The divorce was finalized 3 months later, December 2025. Michael didn't give her a dime. She had no way to fight. The adultery was proven. The last I heard of her, she had moved to another state, with another man, another accountant, another naive fool. Some people never learn. But that was no longer my problem. My problem was rebuilding my relationship with my son. And slowly, visit by visit, coffee by coffee, we began. Michael started coming every Sunday again, alone, without asking for anything, just to talk. He told me about his work, his plans, how he was learning to live alone. It's weird, Mom. I've never really lived alone. From your house, I went straight to living with Jessica. Now I have to learn to cook, to do my own laundry, to fill my own loneliness. That's good. You need to get to know yourself. Do you think I'll ever be able to trust someone again? Yes. But first, learn to trust yourself, your instincts, your worth. One afternoon in January of 2026, he arrived with something in his hands, a white envelope. What's that? Open it. Inside was a check for $7,300. Michael, this is everything I lent you. Well, that you lent me, with interest. It took me 4 months to save up. I stopped eating out. I sold things I didn't need. I did extra work. But here it is, paid in full. My eyes filled with tears. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because when you borrow, you pay it back. That's how you taught me. And I had forgotten. I hugged him tightly. I'm proud of you. I don't deserve it yet, but I'm going to earn it. I promise. And he kept his promise. Over the next few months, Michael transformed, slowly but steadily. He started therapy. He learned about toxic relationships, about codependency, about boundaries. He started to become the man I always knew he could be, and I slowly began to loosen the boundaries, trusting more, believing again. The will remained the same, 30% for him, 70% for my former students. But it was no longer a punishment. It was a reminder that love is shown with actions, not words, that family isn't just blood, it's who is with you through thick and thin. One afternoon in April, while drinking coffee in my garden, Michael asked me, "Are you ever going to change the will?" I don't know. Does that bother you? No. Well, a little. I'm human, but I also understand why you did it. And I understand that Lucy, Marcella, and Rosario deserve it as much or more than I do. Michael, what matters isn't what you have when I die. What matters is that you have me while I'm alive. He smiled, a genuine smile, clean. You're right. As always. Not always, but on this, yes. Sundays became sacred again. Michael would come. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes we cooked together. We always talked about everything. About nothing, about life, like before, like it always should have been. If this story teaches you anything, let it be this. Never let anyone steal your value for fear of being alone. 8 months have passed since that Tuesday when Jessica entered my house demanding my car keys. 8 months that feel like a lifetime. I am sitting in my garden. It's 4 in the afternoon on a Saturday in June. The sun is gently warming. I have a cup of coffee in my hands and a light blanket over my legs, although it's not cold. I just like to feel cozy. I look at the empty space where my silver sedan used to be, and I smile. Because I didn't lose a car that day. I won my dignity back. Life after the storm has been different. Quieter. Clearer. Like when you clean a dirty window and suddenly you can see the entire landscape. Michael comes every Sunday without fail. Sometimes during the week, too. He no longer carries burdens on his shoulders. He no longer repeats other people's words. He is himself again. Or maybe he is himself for the first time in his life. He divorced Jessica in February. The process was faster than we expected. She didn't fight much. I guess she understood there was no point. Or she had simply already found her next victim. My son now lives alone in a small one-bedroom apartment. He cooks his own meals, washes his clothes, pays his bills. He is learning to be a whole man, not half of someone. "Mom," he told me 2 weeks ago as we washed dishes together after lunch, "I don't think I was ever really an adult until now. I always depended on someone, on you, then on Jessica. I never learned to be alone." And how does it feel? Terrifying, but also liberating. I hugged him with my hands all soapy. The will remains the same, 30% for Michael, 70% divided between Lucy Marcella and Rosario. And you know what? That decision doesn't hurt me anymore because those 3 women have shown me more love in these 8 months than many people in their entire lives. Lucy comes every 2 weeks. She brings Sebastian, who now walks a little better thanks to the constant therapies he can afford because he no longer loses 4 hours a day on public transport. He is 6 years old. He calls me Grandma Emily. Every time he does, my heart fills up. The car is still running perfectly. Lucy takes care of it like a jewel. She washes it every week. She gets it serviced religiously. She says that car changed her life. And I know it's true. Marcella, another former student, works as a nurse. She comes to check my blood pressure every week. She never charges me. She says it's the least she can do for the teacher who paid for her high school uniform when her family couldn't afford it. Rosario is the youngest, 25 years old. She studies law at the public university. She works part-time and studies part-time. She comes every Sunday afternoon after Michael leaves, and we play dominoes until 8 at night. We talk about everything, about her dreams, about her fears, about her disastrous boyfriends for whom I give advice she never follows. She makes me laugh like no one else. These 3 women are my family, not because they share my blood, but because they shared my life when no one else wanted to. The house in the getaway town is still rented, money that I now use differently. Scholarships for former students who don't have resources, groceries for families in need, medicine for elderly neighbors who don't have a pension. Mr. Morgan gave me that money to protect me. Now I use it to protect others. I think he would be proud. Sometimes I look at his photograph on my altar, and I talk to him as if he were there listening. "You were right, old friend." About everything. Money does bring out the worst in people, but it also brings out the best when you use it well. You taught me to fly higher than the vultures. And I did. My pension is perfectly sufficient for me. I live alone, without luxuries, but without needs. As I always have. The difference is that now no one tells me what to do with my money. No one tells me how to live my life. No one treats me like a burden. And that is priceless. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had given in that day. If I had given the car keys to Jessica. If I had signed the power of attorney. If I had donated 60% of my pension. I would be living on $600 a month, probably in a cheap nursing home, without a car, without autonomy, without dignity. Michael would still be married to Jessica, being her puppet, being unhappy without knowing it. And I would be dying while still alive. But I didn't give in. I smiled that day, and that smile changed everything, because the smile was not of defeat. It was of strategy, of power, of someone who had an ace up her sleeve and was ready to use it. Now, sitting in my garden drinking my coffee, feeling the sun on my face, I realize something. I am 67 years old. Statistically, I have maybe 15 or 20 good years of life left. Maybe less, maybe more. No one knows. But what I do know is this: I will live those years surrounded by those who value me, not by those who calculate my worth. I will live free, independent, the owner of my decisions. I will die with dignity, not as a victim but as a survivor. And if this story I've told you is of any use, if you can take something from these words, it is that you should never, ever allow anyone to make you feel less than what you are worth. It doesn't matter if it's your son, your daughter-in-law, your husband, your family, whoever. If someone treats you like a nuisance, a burden, a resource, walk away. Because staying out of fear of loneliness is to die while alive. And believe me, loneliness is better company than people who despise you. Learn to keep your aces up your sleeve. You don't have to show everything you have, everything you know, everything you're worth. Wait. Observe. And when the right moment comes, when someone thinks they can dispossess you, that's when you show your true power. Michael has changed. He has truly changed. I see it in his eyes, in his actions, and how he speaks to me now. Will I change the will someday? Maybe, maybe not. What matters is that now he understands that my love is not measured in dollars, that my value as a mother does not depend on how much I leave him, that I am not a bank, I am his mother. And mothers deserve respect. Always. I finish my coffee. The sun begins to set. Soon it will be time to prepare dinner. Tomorrow is Sunday. Michael will come at 2 as always. He will bring rotisserie chicken and tortillas. I will make rice and beans. We will eat together. We will talk. We will laugh like a real family. And in the afternoon, Rosario will arrive with her dominoes and her stories from the university. My house will be filled with voices, with laughter, with life, not with greed, not with manipulation, not with pain, but with genuine love, and that is the only thing that really matters in the end. I get up from my chair. I pick up the empty cup. I look one last time at the space where my car was. "Thank you, old friend," I whisper to the wind. "You were more than a car. You were my instrument of justice, my way of recovering what was taken from me, my dignity." I go into my house, close the door, and feel peace. A deep, complete peace, the kind that only those who fought for it and won it know. I am 67 years old. My name is Emily Saldivar. I was a teacher for 40 years, and I taught hundreds of children to read to add to respect. But the most important lesson I ever taught was my last, the one I gave to my son and his manipulative wife. The lesson that dignity is not negotiated, not sold, not given away. It is defended. With smiles, with strategy, with aces up your sleeve, and with the courage to say, "This far and no further." If my story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, I ask you to leave your comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to defend your dignity? Have you ever set boundaries with someone you thought you loved? You are not alone in this struggle. There are thousands of us who have gone through this, and we all deserve respect. Like this video. If you believe that mothers, grandmothers, and older women deserve to be treated with dignity, not as burdens. Subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel for more real stories like this. Stories that remind you that it's never too late to reclaim your power. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? From what country? From what city are you with me at this moment? Because even though you are on the other side of the screen, I want you to know something. You are not alone. I am with you. And your dignity. Your dignity is worth more than all the gold in the world. Never forget that. The end.